When you ask questions now or later, if you'll give your name and where you live, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lawrence Wasser. I'm from New York. The question is this. If you want to buy a business and the people in the business want cash, you have to have cash. Cash that, this kind of cash.
We're familiar with it.
Yeah. But it strikes me that the preferred isn't really cash. It's fiat currency. That is, it's currency that we can create.
That's true. It's like common stock in that respect. It is a form. It's an alternate form of currency, but it is just in terms of common stock, for example. Assuming we had enough authorized, we have an unlimited ability to create currency. Now, if we create it at the wrong price, it dilutes the value of the old currency. But go ahead.
Until we vote in the affirmative, which I'm sure that this group will probably do because of their confidence in you. But until we vote in the affirmative, it doesn't exist.
That is correct. That would be true, incidentally, with common stock. If we had no more authorized common stock out than we had issued, we have, I think, 1.5 million authorized. But let's assume that we'd issued all that we had authorized. Until more was authorized by the shareholders, it would not be available to be issued.
But if more were authorized by the shareholders, then isn't it true that the value of the shareholders' holding would be diluted?
Only if we receive less in value than we give. That's the key to it. I mean, if we issue $200 million worth of preferred and we receive a business that's only worth $150 million, there's no question you're worse off than before. So are we, incidentally. But we're all worse off. And that's true if we give cash that's worth more for a business than the business is worth. If we give $200 million of cash for a business that's worth $150 million, we are worse off. We may not have issued a share of stock, but we have diluted the value of your stock if we do that. As long as we get value received in terms of whether of cash, common stock, or preferred stock, then you are not diluted in terms of value. It's an important point. And obviously a number of companies, as you may have, Charlie and I have commented about in reports and elsewhere, a number of companies, in our opinion, have issued common stock, particularly, which has a value greater than what they receive. And when they do that, they are running what John Medlin of the Wachovia called a chain letter in reverse. That's cost American shareholders a lot of money. I don't think it'll cost them any money at Berkshire, but it's a perfectly valid worry for shareholders to have, because a management can build an empire just by issuing these little pieces of paper, which they feel don't cost them anything. I think Charlie had one story about that in the past. You want to comment on that, Charlie? No names basis, of course.
There was a particular bank where one of the officers wanting stock options pointed out to the management that they could issue all these shares and it didn't cost anything. Now imagine hiring a manager who thinks that way and paying them money to behave like Judas in your very midst.
We have had conversations with managers where they tell us how fortunate they feel because the stock is down and they can issue options cheaper. Now, if they were issuing those to third parties, I'm not sure whether they'd have exactly the same attitude, but we have no feeling that we're getting richer when we issue shares. We have a feeling we're getting richer when we get at least as much value in a business as the shares are worth that we issue. And we don't intend to issue them under any other circumstances, but it's a perfectly valid worry.
The second part of the question is that obviously with preferred issue, you have a situation where the common shareholder moves to the back of the line, as it were. Why should the common shareholder in this room want to step to the back of the line if he's at the front of the line now?
Well, but it's also true if we buy a business for cash and let's say we borrow the money, the bank that we borrow the money from will come ahead of the common shareholder. There's no question. Anytime you engage in transactions that involve the capital structure, potential for each part of the capital structure. If you issue a lot of common and you've got some debt outstanding, you've generally improved the position of the debt. And the question really becomes whether you think that the position of the common shareholder is improved by issuing either preferred stock or perhaps borrowing a lot of money to make an acquisition. I mean, a couple of times in the history of Berkshire, we've borrowed money to buy something, to buy a business. And when we do that, we are placing a bank or an insurance company or whomever ahead of the position of the common shareholder. We did that when we issued some debt a few years back. And there's a question of weighing whether the common shareholders are going to be better off by borrowing money. But borrowing money is not necessarily at all harmful to shareholders, although certainly if it's carried to excess it is. And the preferred is a form of quasi borrowed money that does rank ahead of the common shareholder, but then at the same time we're adding a business which we think is going to benefit the shareholder if we issue that. So that's the trade-off.